All right. Well, welcome. This is the Constructive Criticism podcast. I'm Zach Simmons. My co-host here, Cale Lopp. We finally get to kick this thing off.
Yep.
How long have we been talking about this?
We've been trying to do this for like too many years.
Honestly, which a little bit of context for the listeners. And if you are joining us, thank you for joining us for our pilot episode. We hope to, in this episode, just explain where this podcast is going, really what we want to achieve and what we want to affect from this. Your comment to me the other day of Meg saying either get this thing going or do away with it. That was kind of a little butt kick that, all right, we just need to do this thing.
Well, that's been the thing from the beginning is, and we've seen this, I think, for both of us in the industry. It's like there's either you're going to do it, you're going to go for it, or you're not.
Yeah. Agreed.
And we gotta do it. It's time to do it. So.
Sure. Well, and I think, what we've talked about in the past with architects and contractors being on opposite side of the table more often than not, at least for me and the collaboration that we've been able to have on other projects, which not even necessarily talking about the companies, but just seeing a basis of collaboration of what is possible from a contractor to an architect perspective. You just don't see that in the industry. And I hope that at least some of these discussions, and I know we've talked about bringing contractors and other architects in to bring their 2 cents, but I really do hope that this conversation is able to kind of affect some change there.
Totally agree. I think we've seen and we've started our businesses each respectfully with the idea that there's a better way. And most people that you talk to, I don't think the industry is really arguing that there may be a better way, but we are either stuck in the systems of the past or the work that it takes to innovate is more than we're willing. And so I think it's a very interesting time in construction and design, particularly in the Midwest, but even overarchingly, because there are new methods out there, there are new ideas out there, and the reality is the old guard, if you will, of how these things are done is that it because of the tightness of budgets, the efficiency and speed that we have to do to meet timelines, the way money is moving with different kind of grant funding and all the different aspects of that we saw come through really start with COVID. All of those things are changing the face of the industry drastically right now. And if you're not willing to get on board, I think there's definitely, those old ships will keep running for an extended period of time just on momentum. But at some point, the reality is there's better ideas out there. There's better ways of producing. There's more efficient processes. There's things that keep us out of litigation more effectively. There's things that keep us away from the struggles that we've seen in the past. And those are the things that we want to talk about on this podcast. I mean, the idea is, how do we do this better? What are we doing? We have set as enemies, combatants across the table for so many years between architects and contractors and consultants and subcontractors and every other aspect. I mean, all the way down the list in this industry. And we have set in that place for so long. And I think those of us who are maybe newer to the game, in the sense that I'm not in my 60s and I haven't been doing this for 50 years. I've been doing it for a minute, but I'm not that old yet. And and it's like we're asking why. Why does it have to be like that? Why do I have to sit down and feel like I question everything that that Zach says, or everything that any contractor that's sitting across from me says, because they're out to get me, or you in the same way. Like, they're just going to make my life hard.
Sure.
You know,
Well,
that
and
that architect's just going to make my life hard.
I mean, we've even seen on recent projects that, early concept phase that, you know, these clients are getting proposals from design saying, okay, well, I'm going to provide this and nothing else. And and it's, the average client is not going to know everything that they need to be able to get that project to the finish line. So they just see that face value dollar line, or at the very bottom of the proposal, saying, okay, well, I assume that that's going to get us to where we need to be able to submit this for a bid or solicit this for a bid. Knowing that if you exclude civil engineering, well, you're not getting a permit. So there's there's that kind of piecemeal, and it's the same on the contractor side. Our competitors, and what we're seeing in the market is general contractors love those jobs because there's limited design on the front end to try to save money, or you get into that situation where it's an accepted proposal. Well, you can't get permit off of what's been generated thus far. So, okay, now there's additions to that. There's extra spend on the front end that now they're already over budget. And so then the contractor comes in. I'm obviously in the market is going to try to bid low to try to get that. We're going to be looking for plan errors. And, unfortunately,
and there's a plethora of them available
sure.
because we're
Yeah.
not in a full design process.
Yeah. And it may or may not, the architect may have been retained for CA on the back end. And so, now there's nobody to answer those questions or speak to those design intents. And so they have to be rehired for the CA, or you have a consultant because there's a bad taste in their mouth. And now the general contractor is the enemy because the client's already frustrated. They already spent more than what they wanted to get to the project. And now, we sign contract and we go to work. Oh, well, hey, Mr. Client, here's problem 1, 2, and 3. Here's, 7% of the total contract value right up front to fix these challenges because I bid what you told me to bid, but it's not going to work. So it's, for me, this whole podcast is, I think we both agree on this, that Oklahoma is kind of set in mannerisms of just how it's been done. That, and I wouldn't even say that the industry is predatory. It may, we talk about these things and it sounds like it is, but it's set processes and set, just kind of general accepted methods of delivery that are just not understood by 75% of the client base. And so if you don't know what questions to ask, you don't have that background or have done a project before, you don't know where your holes are. And so then all of this stuff becomes with a feeling of predatory. And that's where, I feel like 90% of architects are just out to get you. Contractors are just out there to suck all the money dry out of your budget. That's where we've landed. I haven't been able to talk to a new client or even a prospective client that says, oh, we really like this contractor, or, oh, we've worked with them and we have a really good relationship with them. It's all some horror story of, well, we worked with this guy and, whatever that case may be. And that's from the smallest projects to the largest projects. I mean, I know that it's like a $150 million job going on just right outside of the metro from a very large reputable firm. And there was a lot of discussions of these guys are causing issues.
Right.
And so, I at least hope that bringing people in, especially, from my side, whether that be other contractors, whether that be trades, whether that even be construction consultants, that we get to talk about these things, like what is generating this? How do we affect change? How do we make the industry better moving forward? And then where's that collaboration? How can the architectural side and the construction side work better to serve the clients that we work for?
Well, and I mean, I would say even to the level of city officials and whose plans and permitting and how do we deal with that. I mean, all of those things will be addressed here because I think there's so many aspects to what has created the current environment of design and construction. And some of it, it's easy to sit back and say, well, I would do it different.
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and I guarantee you we're going to get those fingers pointed at us. They're like, yeah, you didn't have to deal with it when in the 80s when it was,
Yeah. For
whatever.
sure.
And I'm like, yeah, no, but we're not there now. And what are we doing going forward? So I think definitely the idea is to, I mean, you said it, bring people to the table, have this podcast act in some form as a forum for discussion to see what's out there. Because I would say that, I mean, we have experienced a lot in alternative delivery method together, you and I think that's been the impetus behind this podcast is like, wait a minute, we're doing a lot of this, we should be talking about it. But I by no means look at myself as the expert in all of this right now. And so I wanted to be very honest about the fact that as we look at this podcast, it is a forum. It is we're going to learn probably as much as any of our listeners.
I hope so. Well, and
I agree.
I was talking to somebody the other day about entrepreneurship, and it was a mildly deep conversation of business theory or whatever, and the comment was made, man, like, oh, did you like this is a lot of stuff. Like, where'd you learn all this? And as an entrepreneur, I look at myself today with everything that I don't know, and in the people that I admire, the people that I uphold, and so the amount of knowledge that they have as a business owner, in comparison to myself. But again, I do look at myself today versus myself 3 years ago when we started the company, and just that demanded growth there. I really do hope that, like you said, that we get to learn more, we get to grow just as much as the listeners to this podcast. Because I know, if I do that self-evaluation, man, I didn't know anything when I started the business.
Right.
No, which we'll have Roy on a later podcast, but he really, he talked me into it. He tricked me into scratching that entrepreneurial itch.
Yeah.
But kind of in that role, or that vein, I think it's important we just kind of establish a background.
Yeah, sure.
With us being the primaries for this podcast, I think let's get into background at least for a minute to just kind of establish where we come from, why we want to talk about this. Cale, go ahead, tell everybody where you came from.
Well, so my background is architecture design. I am a licensed architect. Let's start there, just so everybody knows where the lines are drawn in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I have done a lot in a lot of different ways. So architect, went to Oklahoma State. I'm born and raised here in Oklahoma, so I have a passion for the state. I have a passion for what we're doing. I see Oklahoma City and the state at large, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, all of it, as an opportune time for our state to take front stage in some of the ways that we're moving. And so that's my heart and my passion. But my background is really, I started in architecture, got a degree, working through it, had the opportunity. I felt like, again, what are we drawing and how does that relate to what we're building? We're having all these issues in construction. So I went and spent 5 years with one of your competitors, and
Yep.
and worked as a project manager building buildings, and actually being a PM on that side of things and figuring that stuff out. And then the whole time I'm building these credentials, I'm dreaming of green couch and what that looks like, as like, how do we do architecture differently, or can we do it differently, can we be more collaborative? And then I went from there into like an owner's rep development role, So got to see leasing and development side of things, and then came back full circle after that journey of almost 10, 15 years. And we had launched Green Couch. My wife and I had launched Green Couch. She's marketing, business development, graphic design, all of those things. Um, we had launched it while those things were happening, but then really came home to it after doing development. And it was like, okay, what is this now? And how do we define something new? And I think when I say, can it be collaborative, everybody assumes architecture. I mean, if you talk to the industry, everybody assumes collaboration, meaning we're going to do this collaboratively with client or with our consultants. But what we don't really see a lot of is early contractor involvement and collaboration with the construction side. And so that was the one of the foundations of what we felt like our firm could do differently. But that's kind of a very brief history of me. Born and raised in the state, love it, and love architecture and design, particularly how architecture and design moves into and sets the stage for where our world goes, and how we live that. So that's the best soundbite I can give for me.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not too dissimilar. Obviously born and raised in Oklahoma, grew up in construction. I think that was the defining point for me was, with a background in electrical, that was the family company,
Yeah.
as early as I can remember. I think I was out on a job site, before the age of 10, sitting in a job trailer and coloring plans with highlighters. So construction's just always been, a part of life. I've taken some, varying paths. Went to OSU for firefighting, which, took a little bit of stint there in EMS, and then quickly came back to construction. I call that my past life, but no, just spent most of my younger years up into my early 20s, doing electrical, doing light construction, experience here and there as a semi-quasi superintendent project manager. Nothing was ever that structured, really, traditionally structured inside the family company. Is just, here's the job, just go do it.
Yeah. Get it done.
I got my first taste as a superintendent in my early 20s, for a local company, still here, still around, and seeing that really formalized structure, it changed my perception of what general contracting is, because as an electrician, I see the guy walking around telling people what to do, or the guy that shows up in the nice truck and in the nice clothes with the polo and not a scuffed up hard hat, and shows up for a couple hours a week and sitting there running or pulling wire. I'm like, I want to be that guy.
Right.
Yeah, that job looks cool. I mean, was I wrong? But I'm just kidding. No, I bounced some companies trying to find what that right fit is. Had the opportunity to do some school building in DFW, work on some larger programs there with some really great companies. Had the opportunity to work nationwide for some Fortune 5 retail, see a little bit different side of the industry, that more rapid pace, really heavy logistical sense versus, kind of the not necessarily laid back, but very structured, very standard approach for institutional construction that you'd see in schools. Ultimately had the opportunity to move back home, and then shortly after that was the founding of Stronghold. Like I said, I think Roy kind of just talked me into it. I was sitting as a project manager for another local competitor, and said, hey, we have this opportunity. And at the time, he was sitting on the municipality side, and we had gotten on the same project just by happenstance, as me on the construction side, him on the municipality side for inspections, and seeing the challenges, seeing the issues in the industry that neither one of us could really affect, from where we sat. There was a standard that we had to follow and a boss that we had to answer to and the way to do it. And just the frustration of that, We say that Stronghold was founded out of frustration, which I think is very, very accurate. But all of that transpired. That was three, coming up on 4 years ago, and um, just like you said, it, founding this company to try to do something different, try to do things that, at least for myself, I feel like is the right way, or it's the intangibles of the client interaction. It's the intangibles of how the client feels about the project after we leave. Did we hit budget? Yeah. Did we hit schedule? Sure. But what is the intangibles of that build, of that experience, of that build through the process? Those things are hard to correct, especially if you've been brought up in the industry in a certain way. But ultimately, Stronghold is positioned um, primarily on client education, market education of what's available. There is alternative delivery, just like you and I have kind of both fallen into. And how do we translate that into broader market adoption to truly try to change some of this stuff? I don't know. OSU for me, obviously, that doesn't benefit me in any sense whatsoever. Well, outside of a little bit of fire code for what I'm doing today, but the trades had a major impact on me.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there, thinking in the same sense, oh, hey, I want to be that guy, which ultimately was the project manager for that job. And then turn around and getting screamed at by the Vietnam War vet went civil engineer that now screams at every subcontractor that's on the job site on a daily basis, and thinking, if I got the opportunity to run a job, I'm never going to be like that. But it really kind of that still comes with me today in how we interact with subcontractors and how we interact with navigating those traditional issues of general contractor versus subcontractor. What do you feel like for you? I'm curious, and I don't think that we've ever really talked about this. How do you feel like working for the general contracting side has affected your architecture?
Well, first of all, I would say the impact has been great and long lasting. And in both, I think I realized really quickly that I was not cut out to be that guy. Um, I want to sit and figure it out, and there's a production speed that I realized really quickly. I was like, oh my God, like we're sitting in a design office. It gave me an awareness of timeline that I did not have. And I don't think a lot of architects have a full realization of how much has to happen every day to complete the project, and then see that total every week and do that weekly update and say, this is where it's at. And then that monthly project budget check, check with the owners of the company. Cause I mean, you're sweating bullets. Cause it's like, what have I done this month? How, it's a blur because so much has to happen every day and every week. But I get to the end of the month and now I'm doing a project budget, project check, and I'm looking at whether this project is profitable. So all those micro decisions had immediate definitive impacts in that moment, and I think those were the moments where, looking at it, I learned timeline. I learned the impact of time on cost in a way that no architecture school or firm had ever taught me. And so what that built in me was a response to design that was, yes, we want to do it well, we want to do it right, we want to take the time we need to make this everything it needs to be and give good details. I mean, that's another aspect of construction is you open a set of plans and it's like, okay, I don't know what that dimension is, but it's critical for me to frame this, or this is critical. That so it really brought um, it really brought a weight to the plans and the detailing of plans and how they were read and how they are constructed. And I'm not going to stand here or sit here and say that our plans are 100% perfect. Anybody can take my plans and probably pick them apart and redline the crap out of them. I know you have. And
Fair.
fair, like, but we are striving for that every day, to make that better. And then also just the awareness of speed of response on RFI, submittal, or whatever. And being aware that that design time, when you go to that client and say, man, we could really do a better job if we had a month more of design, that project still has to, 90% of the time, that project still has to be delivered by the date the client sees in the back of their head. And you take that month on the front end with design, you're basically borrowing from the contractor for that time. And we don't see it that way in the design industry very effectively. We don't see it that way. We think that, well, that time should have been done that way. That's why the plans are better, everything's better. And it's like, yeah, but there's an exchange there. So are we having that conversation? Are we making the client aware that, hey, if I take this month and I think it's necessary for the design to be at the level that I'd like it to be, but there may be an impact on your end timeline. We don't really do a good job of having that conversation.
At what level did school, or at least during your time in college, what level
Yeah.
did they talk about that? Like that? I mean, the reality is 99.9% of all architects that are just, even if you take drafting into that, whatever you're drafting at some point is going to get built, more often than not. But the greater than that, those that go on and ultimately get their stamp, they're going to be interacting with a contractor at some point, if that's not 100% of what they do.
Uh-huh.
So at what level did they discuss that architect contractor interaction collaboration?
Yeah. So I think I mean, no offense to OSU, go Pokes, but we failed miserably at that one.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's something I've always been really, really passionate about, is go build something. Go build something. As an architectural student, um, take a summer job framing houses if that's all you can grab. But take intern at every summer. I saw a lot of young people. I guess they're my age because they were in school when I was there, but we would all leave for summer, and if I did anything right, I interned every summer from freshman year somewhere. So I did design build work my early years, because architecture firms wouldn't talk to me because I was a freshman. I was too young and too inexperienced to really be a support to their processes, which I understand. No, but so I wound up framing and being the hot shot guy, running and picking up that extra steel beam that, oh crap, we need this, we got to brace this somehow. Like, I was that guy running back and forth to job sites in summers. But that's where I learned that, because school taught a very basic class on construction documents and how those things got built. And then we had one class on law, and basically contract law and construction law, because you're going to be interacting with it. But that was it.
At what level do you think it would be beneficial, and I know I've had this conversation with OSU OKC, for construction management majors to essentially be forced in their degree path to spend side or time on the architecture side, and vice versa for architecture to spend time, a part of their degree path on the construction side, for construction feasibility. I don't know. I know that's a hard thing for colleges to enact and to
Accomplish.
force,
Yeah.
but you take tech, for example, even software engineering. You have a lot of resources to be able to mesh multiple systems, and you just
Sure.
don't see that
Yeah.
in ours.
No, and I think that's I pushed for, and we really should, I think, push more for inter-school projects. I
Hmm.
mean, OSU has an opportunity that other schools may not have as well, because you have a highly ranked engineering school, architecture school, landscape design, construction sciences.
Yeah,
Like, you have the industry in the university there. Other schools have opportunities there too. That was one of the things I really believe in, and I think if we can educate, if we can start to break down those very isolated columns of study, because what we see represented is the same thing. We learn it in this way, and then we go produce it in this way. So then we are that in some ways encourages, not intentionally, but encourages the combative nature of the industry and in the public sector. Um, because it's like we get out of school and I've only ever known it like this. I've only ever known it in this format. And so I don't want to, um, like, I don't want to, it feels unsafe maybe, or
hmm,
outside of the bounds to build those, to cross that line. So, I mean, I think again, coming back to like why we're doing this podcast, what our listeners can expect, and what we're going to do here is these kinds of discussions. Like, what
sure.
nobody, I guess nobody's safe,
No,
including us.
yeah,
But it's like the idea of like we're here to do roundtable, you know, deep dive like discussions about um industry things, and guest, having guest speakers on, having guests on from all different sectors that influence this, but also having that kind of roundtable, like I said, forum feel of that this is what we're doing. We want to bring information to the table. And hopefully you and I and everybody sitting around the table, and those industry leaders that are going to be guesting with us, and those future individuals, are also learning as we sit and have those conversations. We're definitely not going to sugarcoat it. We're definitely not going to play nice. Like, we've already, yeah, we've already taken chip shots at each other,
I mean,
and
sure,
at our college.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's one thing that's very important, because and now today, I mean, everybody's got a podcast. I mean, podcasts are
Right.
a dime a dozen. Um, so I really want to focus on the content, the quality of the content, to be truly beneficial for, not just theoretical, like, oh, well, this would be, the ideal way to enact whatever, X. Um, what can affect true change here now in active jobs or in our next upcoming jobs? What can we learn? What can we glean from different connecting parts of the industry, which, we've talked about, talking about entrepreneurship, small business in Oklahoma, scaling business. So
Yes.
bringing in entrepreneurs, even if they're just construction adjacent. I do want to bring in, small, medium, and large general contractors to, get that perspective to that portion of the market. I think city, state, sovereign nation, tribal. I think having those leaders, those policymakers, those um, individuals from those sectors coming on, which, and I know we already have a couple of them that have agreed to come on. So, I'm excited for those, but um, interacting
Because
with those and setting up jobs appropriately.
I agreed, because I think it starts on some level. We can talk to the other contractors, we talk to other design firms, which I definitely want to bring those to the table as well. I think there's some amazing design firms out there in the Oklahoma City area, but also abroad, that could come to the table and speak to what we're doing here. But the civic leaders, that, I mean, the alternative delivery method is that all of those different things that we're talking about when we say alternative delivery, whether it's progressive design build, CMGC, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can sit here and list them all out, but the idea is it starts with a commitment from an owner, usually, to get into those kinds of conversations. Um, so I think they're the ones that I'm looking to first, to say, are you thinking about this? Are you wanting to do something? So definitely having them on, I'm really pumped about, because I just think they're the key to starting
Yeah.
the revolution. So
Well, and I think that sums up, at least the broader scope of, what we're trying to achieve really well.
yeah,
Who can we bring in? How many conversations can we have about varying sides? Can we bring varying sides together to have them, on the same podcast to
yeah,
start working on some of those issues? At least for me, I want this to be a very non-biased perspective. Yes, I am on the contracting side, but I'm not representing, the company itself in this. I'm just someone in the industry, and I think the same goes for you. Of these are the challenges that we're seeing. This is the issues that we're seeing. Just as a member of the industry, how can
for
we
sure,
affect those?
for sure.
Um, and I think that's an important place to sit, as opposed to promoting an individual business. It's more so just the insight to how the industry works just by being in it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of yeah, to that point, there's a lot of education that still has to happen, not just in alternative delivery methods, but even in the delivery methods that are traditionally used right now. There are better ways to produce those methods. So I want to be clear that I don't think we're taking anything off the table when we talk about what we're wanting to do here or discuss. It's like um, it's how do we do our jobs better? How do we make the industry better? How do we build towards something where we can actually have a conversation? Because to be completely honest, it's been so contentious um, of a conversation, like design build, construction industry, design industry. There's such a tension that's just naturally in those realities that I think if we can come together, have real conversations, maybe we can break some of that down, break some of those walls down, and actually become better for it as an industry, which I would love to see the mecca of that become Oklahoma, just because, like I said, I believe in the state. But if we can institute the idea, whether it starts here or abroad, the idea is there,
Sure, agreed. Well, I don't know about you. I think that sums up our pilot episode pretty good. For everybody listening, thank you for joining us for the pilot episode. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple, and I'll also be posted on YouTube. Still working on that one, but by the time that you listen to
We'll
this,
get
it
there.
will be figured out. And if you want to be a guest, please reach out to either Cale or I. Our contact information will be listed with the posting. We would love to have you, love to discuss. And, just kind of final thought, I think the best way to sum up what we are trying to achieve is the best projects, like you said, aren't built in opposition, they're built in collaboration. So, whatever this podcast delivers to the market, if we get a basis in that, I think it's going to deliver what we want.
Completely agree.
So join us for episode 2. I believe we're going to talk about the Great RFI War, I think is what we had previously established. Really getting into a lot of the nitty gritty of, what is developing a change, what is causing the RFI, what is the intent behind that, because there's a lot of fun topics to get into that both architects and contractors just kind of,
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Me too. It'll be
So
great. Can't
awesome.
wait.
Well, this is Constructive Criticism, where contractors and architects build better together. Thank you for joining us.